Hi, I'm Graham. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys so much for all your support on the previous videos. I feel like we're just getting the channel up and running right now, and we have like some really great momentum behind us. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. The more subscribers we get, the bigger projects we get to do. So it's super important. The projects are just progressively getting a little bit better and better, a little bit bigger. And I'm really excited about today's project, and I can't wait to share it with you. So for today's project, I'm making a niched Murphy table that will act as my dining room table in my apartment. Those familiar with my DIY projects, you know that I love to use recycled, repurposed, upcycled items, but this project is going to be quite unique in that it's going to be made 100% from scratch. Actually, I do use some reclaimed items, so it's not 100% from scratch, but I'd say about 99.9%. I'm not using any inspo for this project besides Kristen's desk that I made previously. So that's gonna be my inspo for this project. I don't wanna make this table the exact same as Kristen's. I wanna make this a completely different style with dark wood tones, clean lines, and that's gonna be more in my style. And I think it's gonna look great in my living room. In the past 2.5 years, I've learned so much about woodworking. I think that I can take what I've learned from Kristen's, what I've learned over the past couple years, and come together and make something really, really special. So in order to get started on the project, I first have to draw it out on paper. I know that the table is going to be split up into a couple different sections. First, there's going to be the niched cabinet, then there's going to be the tabletop, and then there's going to be the picture frame, which will also act as the table legs as well. I'm writing out what materials I need and what tools I need to use in order to get prepared for the project ahead. I know for this Murphy table, I want to use American walnut. It's not a wood that you can just go to your local home improvement center and pick up. So I'm going to have to travel to Exotic Woods. It's like one of 2 specialty lumber suppliers located outside of Toronto. We're looking for walnut, I guess, and we'll see what else they have, but I'm thinking for this drop-down table, we're gonna do walnut. I wouldn't use like a soft type of wood, like a fir or a cedar or something for a table, just because it's too soft, it will dent, you know, if you put a plate down, a cup or whatever. I love going to these lumber yards just because there's just like so much selection that it's kind of like a kid in a candy store. You can just bop around and check out all these things that you can't afford. We're not supposed to be filming in here, but we're gonna film anyways. We got our special little wood cart here, and we found the wood we're looking for. What I want is like mostly like of the dark, like heartwood, and this is like the sapwood. So, like some pieces, this is mostly sap. This is mostly a heartwood, because we want it to be like a nice, like consistent brown color. You also have to see like if it's like twisted or warped. And so what I do is like I just kind of like put my eye up to it. Ooh. Okay, so we got the wood. We got 7 pieces. So we're gonna head back to the workshop, get started. I'm gonna hopefully get the tabletop like all glued together and everything by the end of the day. So that should be fun.
Was it a success?
It was a success, yeah. They had everything we were looking for, which is great. And it was empty and no one gave us any trouble. Okay, so we got the lumber back into the workshop. So let's start with the tabletop. The first thing I'm probably gonna do is cut them in half because these are 6-foot boards and the length of wood I need for the tabletop is probably around 30 inches. I'm gonna cut these into 36-inch pieces. It'll just be easier to put through the planer and to straighten out and all that sort of stuff. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take these over to the miter saw and cut them in half. Okay, so I have all of the boards cut down to an appropriate size. I think they're around 33 inches. I left a little bit extra on either end just for some wiggle room. The next thing I need to do is I need to flatten the first face on each board. I'm gonna cut each board down to roughly the same width It's not gonna be perfect, it's gonna be a rough cut. I'm just gonna cut it down to a smaller size. It'll just be easier to flatten that way. So I'm gonna use the table saw and just cut these down a little bit. Okay, I pulled out my little joiner here. What this does is that it flattens the face of boards. When you get wood from the lumber mill, it's never perfectly flat. So this will just make sure that the tabletop, when we glue everything together, is nice and flat. This thing's pretty scary to use, not gonna lie, but once you have it dialed in, it's amazing. Okay, so now that I have the first face planed, I now have to plane the edge. I first need a reference face so that now I can perfectly get a nice straight edge on each board. So now we're gonna take it to the thickness planer, and we're gonna make sure that every single piece of wood is the exact same thickness. I'm just gonna run each board through this until I make them all a desired thickness. I probably wanna measure all the pieces and try to find the piece that is the least thick. And then I'll start with that as a reference point. 1 3/8 here, 1 1/4. Okay, so seems like 1 1/4 is the thinnest piece of wood that we have. So I have the depth stop on the thickness planer set to 1 1/4 inch. Even though I'm gonna go a little bit beyond that, I'll at least know that all the boards are in that vicinity of thickness, and then I'll go through and send them all through at the exact same time until I bring them down to 1 3/16 inches. Okay, a little tip before I get started. I'm gonna draw a bunch of X's on the face that we have planed already, because I do not want to plane those a second time. We're just trying to get that one face planed. So X's mean don't plane, squiggles mean plane, just so I don't mix it up. I already mixed it up. You can see how rough it is. The after. I also just want to let you know, I got this off of Facebook Marketplace for 250 bucks. They retail for like more than twice that, I think. I'm probably wrong. If you are looking to do stuff like this, definitely check out Facebook Marketplace. Buying new is really expensive, and if you're just starting out, you probably won't know the difference between a new tool and a used tool anyways, and you're probably gonna mess up your projects regardless. So I mean, like, the way I look at used tools is that you buy them for a significantly reduced price, but then you can also resell them for the exact same price that you paid for them. So really it's kind of like you're renting the tool. Yeah, I highly suggest it. Okay, so the last thing that needs to be done is I'm gonna rip these boards through my table saw, and that will remove the fourth and final rough edge. By putting it through the table saw, I'm gonna get a perfectly parallel edge to the edge that we used on the joiner. After we do that, then every single face and edge will be nice and flat and parallel and square to each other, which is great. Then I'm gonna glue everything together, and then I'm gonna let it dry overnight, and when I come back in the morning, we'll have a tabletop. Okay, finally finished. Took maybe a little over an hour to do all that. I don't know if you remember before, there's big gaps between each board, and now there aren't. No gap. So nice. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to use my trusty biscuit joiner. What the biscuit joiner does is it adds little slots in the wood, and you use these things called biscuits, and you plop it in, and it helps line the boards up. So it doesn't really add strength, but it does help significantly when you clamp everything together, just to keep everything straight from moving up and down, side to side kind of thing. So see, nice and smooth. So I'm gonna go ahead and line up one edge of the boards, and I've put letters A, B, C, D, and I've have them kind of overlapping each piece so that I won't forget which piece goes where. A to A, B to B, C to C, D to D, etc. And I'll probably add 4 biscuits. I'll make a note that because we want 30, I'll do 31 just in case. Sorry, I have to do math. I will start at 4, and then I'll have 31 here, because I'm gonna probably take an inch off the bottom end. Gonna use this square, and I'm just gonna draw a line all the way across. So after the biscuit slots are cut, I'm then adding a bunch of wood glue and really lathering up the boards and the biscuits before I slip them into the slots that I cut. I'm doing one board at a time because the glue tends to dry really quickly, so it's a bit of a race against the clock here. After I apply the wood glue, I'm using some pipe clamps to hold the boards together and then putting some hardwood boards across the top and across the bottom in order to hold the board as flat as possible to prevent any warping or cupping. Okay, it's the next day. The glue is all dry. I forgot to mention that dried glue is actually not easier to remove than wet glue. You kind of want to remove it when it's like gel form, but this is okay. I can scrape this away and sand it down. Okay, so I got the board all nice and sanded, just down to 60 grit sandpaper. Just wanted to clean it up before I cut it to the proper dimensions, but I just want you to take a look to see what it looks like already. It looks so nice. So I'm just gonna cut off each end in order to bring it down to 30 inches long, and then I'm probably gonna shape the edges and then sand everything down. Okay, the tabletop's almost done. Look at this. This tabletop is like pretty big. It's a lot bigger than I thought 20 inches by 30 inches was gonna be. But this is like more than enough space. There's a couple more things I have to do before this is done. This has been sanded up to 120 grit sandpaper. I'm gonna go one more level up to 220. Yeah, now we have like the actual dimensions of like what this tabletop is gonna be. So now I can just go ahead and I can start making the niche cabinet for it. So for the niche cabinet, I'm literally gonna follow the exact same steps that I did to create the tabletop. So first I'm gonna cut down the boards to an appropriate length, and then I'm going to take them to the jointer, joint that face, joint the edge, plane the other face, and then cut them all down to size with the table saw. So this is gonna be the same process. I'm cutting a rabbet into the end of each board so that the cabinet pieces can join together like a box. A rabbet is woodworking lingo for a small groove that's cut out from the edge of a piece of wood. And I'm sanding the boards down one last time because it's gonna be a lot easier to sand the individual boards than when it's all assembled. Since I'm gonna be gluing and screwing the cabinet together, I'm just adding some pilot holes for the screws. I'm using some painter's tape again just to protect the inside edge from the wood glue. Come on, come on. I'm using some pipe clamps to clamp everything together while the glue dries, and lastly, screwing everything together with some wood screws. While the cabinet's drying, I'm cutting a decorative trim for the cabinet. To attach the pieces to the cabinet, I'm using some wood glue and a little pin nailer so that the pieces don't slip around while I clamp it together. Okay, now the cabinet's dry. I'm adding some shelf pinholes with a drill and using a little bit of painter's tape to make sure that the drill bit doesn't go too deep. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out what to put on as the backing board for the niche cabinet. At first I was gonna do like an MDF, a sheet of like 1/8 MDF, and then paint it like a solid color. I just didn't have enough material to make like a solid walnut backing board for it, but I have this offcut of the pole wrap that we used on the living room accent wall. I mean, it's like 1/8 of an inch as well. So I already have like the back of this guy routed out for 1/8 of an inch, which is great. Might be a bit thicker, but I think that should be okay. I'm a little shy on the length, but I think I can like glue it and make this work. Okay, sick. You can't even tell. That's amazing. Just gonna add a bit of glue. This is pretty sick. Nice. Wow. Wow, wow. Probably put on some goggles. Okay, time for the moment of truth to see if I've put any nails through the other side. Oh my God, no nails. That looks so good. Look at that. Wow, that is a win that I definitely needed. Okay, so that glue's just gotta dry. Just gotta clean it up a bit. This is actually coming together. I cannot believe it. Ah. With the shelves in here? Wow. Now it's time for the picture frame legs. I knew the legs need to look like a picture frame, but would be strong enough to act as table legs as well. I'm angling my table saw blade at a 45-degree angle and running the table legs through lengthwise to create one lengthy 45-degree miter cut. A miter cut is an angled cut that's across a piece of wood, and usually miters are cut using a miter saw, but with the table legs here, I'm making a bigger miter cut using the table saw. I'm now straightening the table saw blade and cutting all the legs to the same width. So for the picture frame, I have my mitered cuts, and because like I want the frame to kiss the wall and also cover the art print a little bit on the back of the tabletop, I decided to miter these pieces together. And so I have like what's called like a waterfall edge where the grain is matched on the front and back. However, I made some mistakes. I tend to forget like the order of operations quite a bit. So like for example, on this one, that grain matches up like so, but the miters I have backwards, but that's okay. This one's gonna probably be the bottom piece, which will never be seen. And this is like, this face here is gonna face the floor. So you're only ever gonna see this front face, which looks nice. I have to clamp these miters together and make it so that there's a seamless joint all the way down. You don't wanna see a crack or nothing. The only thing is like, you can't clamp mitered cuts like this because they tend to like slip around quite a bit. So it's a very common trick in woodworking is you want to use the blue painter's tape. And believe it or not, the different colors of painter's tapes actually mean something. So like blue doesn't have any stretch to it, whereas green does have a lot of stretch. Yellow, I believe, has a little bit less adhesive on the back, so it's for like delicate areas. And then I think there's like a purple or something, which is even more delicate than the yellow. Anyways, for this, you want to use the blue tape because you don't want there to be any stretch. before I start gluing, I'm also just gonna add a piece of painter's tape. I'm gonna put it right along the inside edge of each miter. And what that's gonna do is that it's gonna protect the inside of the wood. Inside corners are always the hardest to sand and to remove the glue from. And because I've already pre-sanded all these boards, I don't want them to be covered in glue. So I'm gonna put painter's tape along this inside edge. So if glue ends up on the painter's tape, it's just gonna get stuck to the painter's tape, not the wood. So you don't wanna put the painter's tape inside the miter. Just try to get as close to the edge as possible. I'm constantly like blasting through the prep in order to get to the glue because I just want the project to be done. But oftentimes what happens is I make a mess because I didn't prep properly, and then I take like twice as long cleaning it up after, and then the results are never as good. So I'd say like my tip for stuff like this is just like take the time, use the painter's tape, do the proper prep, because it'll just make everything so much easier after. Nice. Let's do this. Go heavy with it too. Don't be afraid of wood glue. Rather than like gluing each leg, or applying the glue to each leg and then clamping them all at the same time, I'm just gonna tackle one leg and then the other, just because this glue tends to have a very short working time. It starts drying and getting tacky pretty quickly, 5 to 10 minutes, I guess, depending on how hot or humid. But you just want to coat all surfaces. You don't want any exposed wood without glue. You want to make sure it's debris free. So this brush, some hairs, make sure there's no wood dust, anything to prevent this from folding nice and tight on itself. Let's see if this works. Hopefully the tape doesn't break. Ah! God damn it. Oi, 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 oi. Come on. Okay, that is actually pretty slick. Do tell me that's at 45, god damn it, my god. So yeah, clamping the legs was actually proving to be pretty tricky because the clamps I got, they got this little swivel ball thingy on it, and it didn't really want to stick to the sharp edge or whatever. Oh my god. So I made a bunch of these blocks. Got little 45s cut in them. Oh my gosh. And those are gonna clamp to the side of the leg, and I should be able to clamp them. Hi. Okay, this one doesn't work either. And then I also knocked over my wood glue and it spilled all over the countertop, which sucks. It smells so bad. Oh my god. Okay, I think this wood glue is probably almost done. If I were to describe the smell, a mixture between chlorine and rotten milk. This is more like a yogurt consistency, I'd say. Got one down already. Okay, 4 down. That's it. Next, I'm going to use the miter saw, and we're gonna cut down the frame pieces to create the legs. This is a little tricky. I have to keep in mind that there's hinges going in place, and there needs to be gaps and all sorts of stuff, so it's gonna be a little tricky to figure out the dimensions and all that, but I think I'm gonna start big, fit it temporarily, and if I need to cut it down, then I'll cut it down. I'm applying some glue to the mitered cuts and using a ratchet strap to hold everything together while the glue dries. I'm using some scrap cardboard in between the ratchet strap and the wood just to protect it while it dries. I'm attaching an old piano hinge I had laying around the workshop to both the legs and the tabletop, as well as some old door hinges connecting the tabletop to the niche cabinet. So this is actually the first time I'm assembling everything, and I can't believe it's actually working. So I take everything apart again, and I'm just sanding it down one last time to make sure it's nice and clean before applying the finish. For the finish, I'm using some hardwood floor finish. It's really nice and it makes the color of the wood pop and protects the tabletop from any spills or scratches. Alright, okay, so it's all assembled now. The finish looks great on it. Everything is amazing. So happy with it. But now I have to figure out the piece of art that's gonna go on the underside of the table, because that's the whole point, is to make it look like an art print that's hanging on the wall. I have some posters I picked up for like $7 in like the kids section at a department store. The Mona Lisa with a bubble gum. And then I picked this one up just in case. I'm not really sure how I feel about this one. There wasn't really all that many options. It was like either this one or the Mona Lisa or like the Avengers or Patrick Mahomes or, you know, like, I don't know, Sidney Crosby posters. But this is really nice. It's like a pastoral Japanese print. That is really pretty. I don't need to go any further. Big Da Vinci fan. To attach the artwork to the bottom of the tabletop, I'm using some 3M Super 77 adhesive spray. I let it dry a little bit for 15 minutes before applying it to the tabletop. I'm smoothing the poster with a wallpaper smoother and then trimming all the edges using a sharp razor blade. Let's see, just a little tester. Cool. Okay, so we're at my apartment and we're gonna be mounting the table into this wall, but I wanna show you first how I found out that I was able to cut out a hole in the wall to begin with. I have this $40 iPhone camera thing. Because there's no like outlet on the bottom, I kind of figured that this wall right here is gonna be pretty empty. No wires, there's probably not like a lot of studs in here, but I still wanna find out like what's inside the wall because I don't wanna start cutting into the wall and then like being surprised if I find like a pipe or something. See? It's a little sideways, but it works. Okay, so I chose this point in the wall in particular because if there is a stud in the center here, first off, I'll be able to see it. And secondly, it'll give me a full range of view. I'm just gonna be looking for pipes or electrical cables or anything that will kind of get in the way of this install. Okay, so right here, there's a stud, or piece of wood, I think. Okay, so we're first gonna hold it up to the wall and open up the table and find out where the cabinet needs to be on the wall so that the tabletop is level to the ground. We're just gonna trace with pencil the cabinet, and then we're just gonna cut out that pencil line that we traced. Oh, sick. So this is great. I mean, there's a stud right here, but it's like teed up to the stud on the corner. So I just probably will have to add like another 2x4 in here just for extra support. We're gonna cut this one out. Then we'll put like a horizontal piece up here and we'll do the same underneath. So I'm just gonna kind of have this lined up here and then just screw in the side there. And that's just gonna give the table just that additional vertical support. So there's already a stud here. There's no need to put a small strip of wood. So I'm just gonna put a piece of drywall. It's gonna be, well, I have to cut it down to size, but like, so it'll just be tucked in there so that I can screw into the side from the inside of the cabinet. Sweet. So I'm just gonna use this like pocket hole jig And this is just gonna put in some screw holes into the 2x4 that go kind of like perpendicular to the board. So they'll like have something to like bite into and like grab those other studs on either side. Oh yeah, okay, we're done. So because we removed this stud in the center, now there's not as much like structural integrity on the drywall up here and down here. So I'm just gonna put in just a couple drywall screws, and that will hopefully prevent like the drywall from cracking or shifting or something like that, so. Now it's time to put the cabinet inside the niche that we made, and we just have to secure it in place and we should be done. It's pretty flush. That's cool. Okay, so this is where the shelves are gonna go. You can see the little shelf pins there. So I'm gonna put a screw so that the shelf is gonna cover the screw hole. It's awesome. The whole point of this was to conceal the table and like this niche in the wall and all that sort of stuff. And unfortunately, these magnets are visible. I'm not done with this. I am gonna like conceal these magnets a little bit more, whether recess them in the wall a little bit and then paint it white. But for right now, I think it works. And they're strong enough to hold the table up for the time being. This is the part of the video where I talk about what I learned and what I would do differently. Because I made this table from scratch, there is quite a bit that I learned. However, this is version 2.0, so I've already learned a lot from the first time I did it. When you're working with expensive wood like walnut, you triple check your measurements and you cut once. You don't want to make the mistake of cutting a piece of wood too short, or it has a crack in it, or just be so sure about each cut you make. Another thing I learned too is that I feel like this project, I had it all sorted out. I knew the frame was gonna be a certain way, and then when it came to installing it, I just didn't have that figured out, right? Like the magnets, I like glued onto an anchor, and then now the magnets are exposed. When I was building up the framing of the inside the wall, I probably should have tried to like hide the magnets above the framing. It was definitely something that I overlooked. Another thing I learned is that like the poster that I used to glue onto the underside of the tabletop, I used a glue that is quite wet. And so when I put the poster down, the poster got all wrinkly and it kind of like raised up and had all these bubbles and stuff. So what I probably should have done is I probably should have used like a contact cement or something where you allow the adhesive to dry and then you can paste it down. I do think that it's still a vibe. It still like matches like the antique style of the poster. I am like so happy with how it turned out. I've had friends over and I've had it both up and down, and they had no idea that it could be one or the other or like both. So it's like been a party trick of mine to like show my friends that it is in fact not only a concealed cabinet, but a concealed table. It was such a satisfying experience making it. It was one of those projects that I just had this like flow state while making it. Sanding, routing, mitering, cutting, planing, jointing, like all those different steps that have to be done in a certain way, I think were all done as best as I could have done it. And it was very satisfying to see it all come together. So let me know what you thought of the version 2.0 Murphy table down in the comments. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.